What is going on, everybody? I am back with some Seahawks news. Actually, Seahawks news that happened yesterday, as the Seahawks did release defensive tackle Al Woods. I believe the cap savings, I'm not positive the actual number. I want to say it's about $4 million. It was either like 3.8 or 4.8. I think it was closer to 4 than it was 5. But it is a decent cap savings for the Seahawks, say about $4 million or so, give or take, with the release of Al Woods. Now, I will say this one seemed to be the most surprising to people of all the three. The Seahawks released Shelby Harris, they've released Quentin Jefferson, and now they've released Al Woods. If you go back and watch, I had a video earlier in the offseason before free agency started, and I talked about the cap savings they could get from releasing certain guys. Gabe Jackson was a super obvious cut. Quentin Jefferson, I thought, was a very obvious cut. Shelby Harris and Al Woods, I wasn't so sure about. I thought they might keep both those guys. I thought they had some roles on this defense. And I talked about Jamal Adams as well being a possible cut. I think there were some other ones in there too, but that was mainly the ones that were brought up. And they've released all three defensive linemen. Now, before I get into Al Woods specifically, listen, this Seahawks D-line was bad last year, guys. It was not good. And Al Woods was probably one of the few really effective players. And I love me some big Al Woods. If you watch my post-game recaps, I talk about how Seattle missed Al Woods in certain situations big time. But also, I mentioned the problem was for the Seahawks defense that they missed Al Woods. Al Woods is a one-year deal role player. He's good at it. He's a really good run stuffer. But he's 36 years old, or he's going to be 36 years old. And you need guys. There's always need for guys like Al Woods, but you can't be in a position where that's one of your most important players on your defensive line. And truthfully, he came back at the end of the year, and it's not like they shut down Christian McCaffrey in the playoff game with him in there. I think he's a good nose tackle. I think he's effective, but I'm fine with them moving on and trying to get younger at that position and getting in the cap savings. Now, there's a couple things with Al Woods specifically and Shelby Harris. They could bring these guys back. This could be something like, listen, we're going to save $4 million and we'll bring you back, on a $1 million deal. That could be what's happening here. It wouldn't totally shock me. Now, he did have an Instagram post, Al Woods did, kind of saying peace to the 12s and thank you for everything. So maybe that means he is going to move on. But it is possible that they do bring him back on a cheaper deal. Same for Shelby Harris. I do think it's possible, kind of like what they did with Carlos Dunlap going into not this past season, but the previous one. They had released him, and then they brought him back on a cheaper deal. So it would not totally shock me if one of these guys is back. Now, in Al Woods' in Al Woods' case, he's going to be 36. He's been in the league a long time. There could be some injury-related risk to this. Maybe there's something Seahawks don't really like. Again, he's closer to 40 than he is to 30. So there could be some stuff there, too. I'm not saying there is. I'm just saying that could be a reason as well. Maybe health-wise, there's some stuff that the Seahawks don't really like, and they just decide to move on now. And now, another thing I'll say, too, with the three guys Seattle's released on the D-line, and again, maybe there's something in the works here where they're going to bring one or two of them back. I don't think they're bringing back Quentin Jefferson, but I could see Shelby Harris or Al Woods coming back. No, so maybe there was something in the works there. But let's say there's not, and they're just free agents. I have not heard any interest in these three guys in free agency, and that should tell you a lot about where Seattle's defensive line was. I'm not trying to knock any one of those guys. I think they all have roles on NFL rosters. Even guys that were not released. LJ Collier just signed today a one-year deal with Arizona. Poona Ford is still sitting out there as well. So it's 5 defensive linemen that Seattle essentially has let go to free agency. And the first one to sign was LJ Collier on essentially it's going to be a one-year prove-it deal for a team that might have less D-line depth than the Seahawks in the Arizona Cardinals. So that's it. These guys are not getting a ton of interest. Again, I don't think any one of those 5 names are bad football players. LJ Collier I think is kind of a bad football player. But I think Poona Ford, Al Woods, Shelby Harris, Quentin Jefferson have roles in the NFL. But they are your last guys on a defensive line. Maybe Poona is a guy that can be more of an every down player, but the rest of them are just not every down linemen. And this is what Seattle was rolling out there as their D-line last year. They have got to get younger and they've got to get better. And it's already started. Draymond Jones is an upgrade. He would have been the Seahawks' best defensive lineman last year. I don't love Jaron Reed, but it's probably at least maybe equal to what a Shelby Harris would give you on that defensive line. So, it starts now. And they talked about after that 49ers game, if they had to make wholesale changes on that D-line. There is not a single D lineman last year that is going to be left on this team this year, especially if you consider Mafe, Taylor, and Nwosu, outside linebackers in Seattle's defense. The only guy left on the roster is Brian Monet and Miles Adams. Monet, who might have been another release candidate had not been for the injury. They might end up coming to some injury settlement there. I don't know. And then Miles Adams, there's no point to release him. He's on a rookie contract, so you don't need to get out. That doesn't save any money. But the Seahawks are making wholesale changes on the D-line. That's one thing I give John Schneider and Pete Carroll credit for. When they see an issue, they go in. Like, they don't mess around. Pete, you kind of look at a guy like Pete Carroll and you think, fun-loving guy, loves his, and he does. I think Pete loves his guys, but, you don't think of him as cutthroat, but they're willing to make the changes when the changes need to be made. And this is a case right here. That defensive line group was not good enough last year. Do I think they're all terrible football players? No, I don't. But they've got to get younger. They need to get more elite talent in there. And they can't keep rolling back these same guys and hoping that there's Band-Aids on these issues. They did the same thing 2 years ago. They released Carlos Dunlap, who's okay in 2021. They released Kerry Hyder. They got rid of some of these guys. Now it's time to, with these draft picks, and free agency, maybe trades, to get some guys in here that can be real impact players. That doesn't mean there's not spots for role players. Jaron Reed's on this roster. I'm okay with bringing back Shelby, Puna, or Al Woods. Like, I'm not against those guys being on the roster. I probably wouldn't bring back all three, but one or even two of them. I'm not against it. Like I said, they have roles, but they cannot be your preliminary players. I've seen a lot of people saying this, you can almost pencil in Jalen Carter to the Seahawks at 5. I wouldn't. I don't think so. There's just too many red flags right now with Jalen Carter. I don't think this has anything to do with getting Jalen Carter in here. I'm sure they'd love to get Will Anderson in here. I think it just has to do with this was a bad group last year. We're going to get some cap savings, and we're going to try and make this a better unit this year. Or at least, if we're going to fail, it's going to be with younger talent along this defensive line. I'd rather fail with 3 younger guys than fail with Shelby Harris, Puna Ford, and Al Woods in there as well. So the other thing with it, there's still some free agents left. Guys like Ishan Robinson are out there. You still have Puna Ford out there. So and if his market's not there, I could see him coming back to Seattle on a deal, and making something happen there. I think, who else is still out there? I don't have the list in front of me. There's also trade possibilities. The Bucks did just redo Vita Vea's contract, but that's a name. DeForest Buckner's out there from Indy. Jeffrey Simmons from Tennessee. So there are some names out that they could go and trade for as well. They're freeing up a lot of money with these. I don't think it's all just about freeing up cap space. I think there maybe is something here that they are working on, whether it's another free agent. I mean, they're almost going to have to bring in somebody else. They have right now 2 D linemen on the roster in Jones and Jaron Reed. Draymond Jones can certainly be a cornerstone or at least a starter. Jaron Reed, to me, is more of a role player, but we'll see. So they're definitely going to have to make moves, whether it's free agency, trade, we know they're going to draft some guys. I wouldn't be shocked if they traded for somebody. I wouldn't be shocked if they look at DeForest Buckner and do something. I'm not saying they're going to. I do not have any insight to any of this, but wouldn't shock me if they tried to say, you know what, we're going to stop making cookie cutter signings here, and we're going to get someone big and put them in there. And some of these guys are not going to be as expensive as you think they are either, because their names are out there. These teams are rebuilding. I mean, there's rumors that it might be tough to get a first-round pick for Aaron Rodgers, who, while older, is still, for the Jets, a team that is a quarterback away. So I don't think you're going to have to give up that much to get some of these guys. You'll have to pony up something, but I don't think it's going to cost you. It's not going to cost them like both first-rounders to get DeForest Buckner, in my opinion. Maybe number 20, but I don't even necessarily think it would do that. I think it would cost you your first, second-round pick. I think it costs you 36, 37, and maybe a fourth or a third, and then a future second. I could see something like that. But I don't think it's going to cost you a first-round pick. And then you can still make some draft choices as well to fill in some gaps. Then you're looking at Draymond Jones, Jaron Reed, DeForest Buckner, some rookies, and all of a sudden this looks like a pretty decent group, in Seattle. I do not, like I said, I don't think this necessarily means anything regarding Jalen Carter. The only time I really right now with Jalen Carter, and I feel for the guy, and I, but there's just too much off the field stuff. The pro day thing was bad. I won't get into it too much here, but I'm not overwhelmed by his tape either, to be perfectly honest. There's talent in there, and I think Pete Carroll would be the right coach and Clint Hurt for him. But I don't think I'd touch him at 5. Maybe at 20, maybe at 34, 35, whatever your Seattle's picking in the second round. Sure, at that point, bring him in. But I don't think this has anything to do with Jalen Carter. I think this is just a cleaning house of a group that just was not good enough last year. Simple as that. Doesn't mean all these players are bad. Like I said, I think they're all going to have roles in the league next year. But it's not good enough as just your unit to have that be your defensive line. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Let me know if there's any free agents you're looking at, any trades you think could happen, and what you think it means for Seattle's draft. And we'll do more Seahawks news here as well. Just a little breakdown there. Hit that subscribe button, turn on the notifications, and I will see you guys next time. Peace.